Good morning, dears. Welcome back to today's social science class. We are studying the 8th unit, Medieval World. Last day, we discussed the topic feudalism and social conditions in Europe between 5th and 15th century CE. Today, we have to discuss the topics cities, trade, and trade guilds in medieval Europe. Actually, trade was not prominent at that period. In the last class, we seen the majority were compelled to work in the field and houses of the Lord. And the huts of farmers are in the manor. At that time, the products of the manor were consumed right there. The farm products and farming tools were exchanged in the local markets. That means there are some local markets and the farm products and farming tools they were exchanged in the local markets. This led to the formation of new cities. Many cities developed in Europe by the 11th century CE. The centers of trade and handicrafts gradually developed into cities. Centers of trade and handicrafts gradually developed into cities. And the areas around the ports also become cities. Centers of trade and handicrafts gradually develop into cities and the areas around ports are also become cities. This is a map which shows the medieval European cities. Let's watch it carefully and identify and list out the countries where the medieval cities mentioned. Watch and list the cities and where or which countries they were belonging to. Okay. Such new cities initially began to develop in Italy. The Italian cities had trade relation with Asian and West European countries. New cities are initially began to develop in Italy and the Italian cities had a trade relation with the Asian and West European countries. Venice, Milan, Florence, Genoa were the major newly developed Italian cities. Which are the major newly developed Italian cities? Which are they? Venice, Milan, Florence, Genoa. Then Nuremberg in Germany and Constantinople in Turkey were the other major European cities. Spices, gems and clothes from India and China were imported to these cities. From there, these goods were transported to other European countries. Spices, gems and clothes from India and China were imported to these European cities and from there these goods were transported to other European countries. The newly developed European cities were the centers of handicrafts and trade. The traders in these cities formed associations. They are called guilds. These newly developed European cities were the centers of handicrafts and trade, and the traders in these cities formed associations. They are called guilds. These guilds consist of blacksmith, traders, goldsmith, leather workers, and carpenters also. In addition to traders, blacksmith, goldsmiths, leather workers and carpenters also formed guilds. And this guild fixed the price and the quality of product and the working hours of laborers. These guilds have the right to fix the prices and the quality of products and the working hours of the laborers. Most of these cities had their own administrative system. These cities have their own administrative system. സ്വന്തമായ ഭരണ സംവിധാനങ്ങളുണ്ടായിരുന്നു ഈ മിക്ക സിറ്റികൾക്കും. Tall boundary walls were built to protect these cities. These cities were not at all hygienic. So, they were under the threat of epidemic like the plague. Do you heard about plague? Which is called Black Death. Did you ever heard about it? Okay, let's listen. The words of Giovanni Boccaccio the Cameron, an Italian author. Let's listen. How many valiant men, how many fair ladies had breakfast with their king of, and same night supped with their ancestors in the next world. The condition of the people was pitiable to behold. They sickened by the thousands daily and died unattended and without help. Many died in the open street, others dying in their houses made it known by the stench of their rotting bodies. Consecrated churches did not for the burial of the vast multitude of bodies, which were heaped by the hundreds in vast trenches, like goods in a ship's hold and covered with a little earth. These are the words of Giovanni Boccaccio the Cameron. He is an Italian author. From his word, it's clear the plague was an epidemic that posed the greatest threat in the medieval cities. Epidemic means pagarchavyadi. Boccaccio draws the terrifying picture of a city affected by the plague. The epidemic struck hard especially on the port cities. This plague, which attacked the port cities especially. Why? The ships that brought goods carried rats that caused the plague. Rat caused plague. In ports, ships carried rats and that rats caused the plague. This disease came to be known as Black Death as the thousands of people succumbed to it. The population of Europe, which was 73 million in CE 1300, which dropped to 45 millions in a century after the attack of the plague. Did you notice the population difference? In CE 1300, there is 73 million in Europe. Its population is 73 million. But after 1 century, it dropped to 45 million only. Next, knowledge and art in medieval Europe. In medieval Europe, knowledge and art attained remarkable progress. In the case of medieval India, we see in the art and literature or art and knowledge in the medieval India. Same as in medieval Europe, churches and monasteries were the major centers of education. Monastery means sannyasi mathangal. So, churches and monasteries were the major centers of education in medieval Europe. There were libraries attached to the monasteries. Each monasteries, there were libraries are attached. Before the invention of printing technology, at that time, manuscripts of many books were prepared and preserved in the monasteries. At that time, there is no printing technology. So, manuscripts of many books, manuscripts, കയ്യെഴുത്തു പ്രതികൾ. So, manuscripts of many books were prepared and preserved in the monasteries. See the picture in our textbook. One man is preparing the manuscript. It's an illustration. Several universities function as centers of knowledge in medieval Europe. In medieval Europe, there are several universities. They are functioned as centers of knowledge. Let's see which are they. Pavia and Padua are the universities in Italy. Parma and Cordova are the universities in Spain. Paris and Toulouse are the universities in France. Oxford and Cambridge are the famous universities in England. Pavia, Padua in Italy, Parma, Cordova in Spain, Paris, Toulouse in France, Oxford and Cambridge in England. These are the famous universities in medieval Europe. Architectural splendor of medieval Europe is evident in the construction of churches. Churches are the example of their architectural development. Arches and spacious interiors are the features of the churches constructed during this period. What are the features of churches constructed during the medieval period in Europe? Arches and spacious interiors. This style of architecture is known as the Romanesque style. A new style of architecture known as the Gothic evolved by the 12th century CE. Like in medieval India, there also the Gothic style of architecture that will evolve by the 12th century CE in Europe. Pointed towers are the major features of Gothic style. See the picture. One Romanesque style and the other Gothic style. Here we see the art and knowledge in medieval Europe. Then let's see what about the medieval China and Arab world. The Chinese and the Arabs also made significant contributions in the field of knowledge and art during the medieval period. The knowledge and art in China and Arab world in medieval period. The Chinese invented the printing machine and gunpowder. The European acquired knowledge about these from Chinese. The main invention of Chinese is printing machine and gunpowder. The Europeans acquired this knowledge from Chinese. Printing technology helped the development of knowledge. Who invented the printing machine and gunpowder? The Chinese invented printing machine and gunpowder. The Romanesque compass, an instrument to find direction during the navigation, is also a Chinese contribution. The Romanesque compass is an important invention of Chinese. It's an instrument to find the direction during navigation. And they were excellent in architecture too. Pagodas were example of this. Pagodas, the Buddhist centers of worship. They are pagodas. Pagodas were the main example of their architecture excellence. Next, knowledge and art in Arab world. The significant contributions of the Arabs were the fields of science and literature. Al-Razi and Ibn Sina were the scholars in the field of medical science. Al-Razi and Ibn Sina were the scholars in the field of medical science. Kitabul Hawa, written by Al-Razi, is a work on medical science. Al-Razi's book, Kitabul Hawa, is a major work on medical science. Al-Qanun is the work of Ibn Sina. Al-Qanun is the work of Ibn Sina. Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam and Shahnama, written by Firdausi, were the remarkable literary works of that period. The famous 1001 Nights is another literary contribution of the Arabs. Famous work 1001 Nights. It's or the Arabian Nights. This is another literary contribution of the Arabs. The Arabs acquired knowledge on science and technology that originated in ancient India, and they propagated this knowledge in Europe. The concept of zero and the decimal system are the example of this. The concept of zero and decimal system is first found in ancient India, and the Arabs acquired this knowledge and they propagated it into Europe. Okay. In this unit, we have discussed the major features of medieval Europe, China, and Arab world. By the end of the medieval period, trade gained prominence, and this helped the spread of progress in the field of culture and knowledge to different parts of the world. With this unit is over. Thank you.